You're listening to The Marketing Trench, the official podcast where no real estate professional gets left behind in the pursuit of building a business they can be proud of. A podcast designed to help you build the foundation of a powerful real estate career. Join real estate experts Ricardo Bueno, Marketing Technology Director at West, Dustin Stevie, CEO of Lighthouse Escrow, and Scott Shang, partner at Bywise Mortgage and founder of Find My Way Home, as they bring you real-world strategies, marketing ideas, and solutions straight from the trench.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Marketing Trench podcast. Today, we're going to talk about a highly relevant subject to real estate professionals.
Continue.
Thank you, sir. The subject is HelloFresh.
Oh, okay.
I'm not even going to set this one up, Ricardo. Do you want to talk about your recent experience ordering HelloFresh?
Oh my God.
Yes, you do.
So HelloFresh is actually pretty awesome. But
Explain for the audience exactly what HelloFresh is.
it's a meal delivery service, except the meals, it's not like a meal prep service where the meals are done for you. You microwave them and you're good to go. So you pick whatever meals that you want to cook for that week, and they mail you a box. It has ice, they mail you recipes and all of the ingredients, and it's basically, this is what you're cooking for dinner. Here are all of the exact ingredients that you need.
And the exact quantities.
The exact quantities.
So there's no waste.
There's no waste. It's actually pretty darn amazing. However, but the thing that you should know about me is that I don't want to put all of those ingredients together and take the time to cook. I'd rather have the actual.
Well, I don't think that's just about you. And I think that's a super interesting. You know, this is funny how this topic evolved, because we were talking about a lot of different things, and then you started telling the story, and it's actually unbelievably relevant to what I think a lot of us go through and what a lot of us experience. Because let's go through the psychological evolution of what ended up being a box of ingredients, mostly done for you. They didn't overpromise. They said, we're going to give you the exact ingredients, so there's no waste. It's going to be fresh. Hello. And they're going to give you instructions, step-by-step instructions, so that it's super easy.
And beautiful, by the way, because a lot of people who order these things, right, they put them on Instagram, the meals, because they look like they're
they look great.
5-star. Oh, yeah. Like you feel like a professional
And don't
chef.
get me wrong, when I cooked the first one, that sucker was amazing.
Right.
It was so amazing. It was even better the next day when we had leftovers.
Yeah.
It was even better the next day.
But you have to be a certain kind of person. So going back to what Scott's saying here.
Well, yeah, and I think this happens a lot to us in our business. Because in order for you to consume all of those HelloFresh, it requires you to change your habits a little bit. Mm-hmm. Because prior to you getting that, you didn't have you weren't habitually cooking, so you didn't buy HelloFresh because every time I cook, there's a ton of ingredients left over. So I'm going to buy this to solve the specific problem of having the exact perfect amount of ingredients so that I don't have waste. That was not why you bought it.
Correct.
Right? You bought it because you're like, I like fresh meals and I like things that are all laid out for me step by step.
Right.
Right.
And even you do like the idea of cooking, because the first time you did it, you told me you played music, you were there, chop.
A little romantic time with himself. And he was dancing with the wooden spoon.
It was like Ratatouille. It was like Julia Child was there next to him.
That's a really good movie.
It is a good movie.
I think it was more like Julia Child than Ratatouille. If I sit there with a big bottle of sherry, just pounding it.
But the point is, like, you love the idea of being this person who cooks every night in this sort of like perfect romantic setting. It fell apart the second night. And we're not going to go into the details of why, because we don't want to get anyone in trouble here. But suffice it to say, the first night worked out really well because it was like the initial high of it, right? Like
it was new and it was exciting, and it was the reveal, right? It was like, it's here, it's the reveal. Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
But the second night started feeling like work. Like the second night was people came home, there was hangriness happening, and it's work now, right? Like it's not like it's
now I gotta go cook,
right?
Yeah.
Open all the packages, pour the ingredients in. You know, you're on an hour clock or whatever it's going to take you to cook this thing, and that's where I think all of us have seen that when we talk to people. In fact, let's not even like put this on other people. Let's just get real with ourselves for a second.
Yeah, no, that's about ourselves.
When we launch into something, we're all super stoked about it the first time. You know, we roll it out. Yeah, high energy. And then day 2, when it's just work and it's not the romantic scene of, you know, candlelight cooking, whatever, then we're bored. And then, you know, we're like, well, I could be doing better things with my time.
Yeah.
And Ricardo, do you want to give some examples of when we asked you what could you be doing better with your time? Some examples of what you rattled up. I'm going to put you on the spotlight, but then I'm going to take it myself. So,
well, it's just I could be doing other things with my time. I can be following up with people via email. I could be reading a book. I could be
okay. So Ricardo is engaged in what we would call bullshit, but But if it were me and I were doing it, I would say that. I'd be like, I could be reading a book, but really I would be scrolling social media. I'll just own this, right? I totally would be. I'd be scrolling social media. I might be like zoning out on YouTube. I might be doing nothing. I might be doing something so unproductive that if you asked me 5 minutes after I was done doing it, what I just did, I couldn't even tell you because it was that unproductive, right? So it's not even like people fail for want of like a better strategy, right? It's not like they're like, well, I could be working the CRM, but I'm not working the CRM because I'm actually meeting with 10 people and closing deals, right? It's more like I could be working the CRM, but I'm on social media following the big rock star person and I want to be just like them. And I'm thinking about how you look hesitant.
No, that's a piece of it. But I think there's something even more kind of raw, kind of in just our habits. You know, it's that because you're making a decision because you think it's better than where you are now, as opposed to doing something purposely because you're trying to improve or solve for a problem that you see right now.
Right.
So the problem is not time, or you wouldn't buy something that needed to be prepared. So the problem that he was solving for was a fresh meal, right? In a relatively short period of time, shorter than going to the grocery store, deciding what to eat, putting together all the ingredients and cooking it. So I want to eat healthy, but I don't want to go through all of the effort. Well, it turns out removing some of the effort still isn't enough motivation to get in there and really do it. So there wasn't a big enough reason. It was like, yeah, this sounds good. It's the kind of the grass is greener theory, right? Grass is always greener until you get on the other side, right? You look at it and you're like, oh yeah, that looks like something. And then you get over there and you're like, well, shit, it still needs to be mowed. You know, it still needs to be watered. It's just grass. It was just that dude took care of it better than, like, they showed me the grass when it was perfect. But then when you get over there, you're like, you still got 10 to the grass.
Right.
You know? So it's there's something, and this happens all the time. This happens all the time when it comes to tools and strategies. And there's a lot of people that, you know, present themselves as coaches out there. And what they're doing is they're presenting these solutions, these beautifully polished solutions, and they're hitting all of the right pleasure points. But the reality is there's not enough behind it. You know, once you get there, you're instantly let down. You're like, you know, the very first time you're like, oh, that was exciting. And then the second time you're like, oh shit, I got to cook. Right. Even though it's less time, it's still, you have to do it. So that's interesting. So how do we know that we really want something? And is there a process where you see something, and is there like some sort of process that you can go through to say, is this something that I'll really do? And then make that decision and not get overwhelmed by the anticipation or the excitement of something. So, I mean,
that's a great question to ask yourself, because the question you're asking is it a me problem or is it a tool problem? And I think that a lot of people, I've done this, where I've been like, I would be so much more effective if I had a tool. But really the problem I'm having is me. So I'm not disciplined, for example. The reason that I fail to follow up with past clients is not because I don't have a great tool for it, because people who are really good at it, actually, you have someone at your title company who writes handwritten thank you notes every single week. He doesn't have a tool for that. Nope. He has thank you notes and a pen, and he has discipline.
Sits down and he does it every single freaking week.
Yeah, and I got one from him.
Yeah.
He's growing his business. He started from zero. He's cracked a coastal market. Like, I have a lot of respect for the guy. And I think about that. I'm like, I have thank you notes. I have pens. They're both branded. You know what I mean?
I'm holding one of them right now.
You are. They're beautiful. Lighthouse Escrow pens. And
this message is brought to you by.
And yet, I don't do that. And no tool is going to make, like, it's not a tool problem because I got the tools. It's a me problem. But yet someone's going to come to me and be like, do you not write your handwritten thank you notes? Probably the problem is you don't know who to write them to, right?
Okay, so this conversation can fork one of two ways.
Yeah.
Fork, like a split, like a divide in the path. I want to make that perfectly clear.
Oh my God.
So one path is, it's important. Do you really need to be the one that has to do it?
Oh, interesting.
So yes, you have thank you notes. Ricardo, because this is where the conversation went with Ricardo. He likes eating fresh, but is it worth, if he doesn't want to do it, is it worth hiring somebody to come in and prepare those meals?
To me, it is.
Of course it is. Because if you could be spending your time on activities or things or thoughts, investing in your relationship, investing in your business, investing in a partnership, a project that you're working on, something that you can dedicate your energy to, that's not that. So you can solve for the fresh meal, but you have to hire somebody to do it for you. And people think, oh, that's silly. But no, seriously, you could probably, there's somebody out there that $300 a month or $500 a month would be exactly what they're looking for right now. Right? Like that's like they need that extra money. They'd be happy to come in and spend the 20 minutes that HelloFresh has narrowed down cooking a fresh, delicious meal to. They've made it so simple and so easy. It's literally somebody coming in a half hour a day.
Dustin is judging me right now.
It's 2.5 hours a week.
Yes.
Right? It's 2.5 hours a week that somebody comes by and cooks your meal for you.
But like, what if, okay, but you just set up like the perfect decision there, right? In the sense it's like, do I want to write the thank you note or do I want to close 3 deals, right? Obviously you want to go close 3 deals. Most people aren't closing 3 deals. Most people are wasting their time. So what do you do in this fork that you're talking about where the decision is, do I write the thank you note or do I sit on my butt and scroll Facebook?
Well, if you're wasting time, then you need to have a serious conversation with yourself. If you're just lazy and you don't want to do it, that's one thing. But
I saw your hand casually waft over in Ricardo's direction.
it was a general wafting. It wasn't aimed at somebody. But you have somebody in your office that can do it. So yes, the letters are important.
Yeah.
And so you have somebody to do it. Or the other piece to this is, do you just hunker down and break through the learning curve? Because is the pain enough that you go through and you figure it out and you just do it yourself? Or you do it yourself, or is it important enough that you should spend the time and energy to do it? And cooking a meal necessarily might not be.
So this is funny because I average about 30 to 40 appointments a week. Most of them don't have a CRM. The first thing we do is we set up and we help them get set up with their Lion Desk.
Yep. Free member benefit with the association.
When I circle back with them, the overwhelm of logging into a new system, figuring out what to do is almost so great that they don't want to do the follow-up. And Yeah.
So it's not the money. It's not like I can't afford a CRM. It's I can't make it through the learning curve. And it's probably because there's not enough pain there for them not having a CRM.
Yeah.
So
Or there's not enough will. Because I'm not convinced that pain begets will.
I think there's a lot of truth to people do things to gain pleasure, avoid pain. I mean, I think as fundamentally, I think that's ultimately, you don't, how many people do you know start exercising after they have a heart attack? Right? They're like, I don't want to die. I should start eating right and I should start exercising. That's a perfect example. So if there isn't like imminent torture from not doing it,
right?
Sometimes but you're right, it is will, but that willpower is so much more difficult to master than running away from pain, right? It's almost an advanced, willpower takes a lot of willpower.
but good work is painful often, right? It's like learning how to be proficient at anything requires, you can suffer through boredom because you're going to do something 10,000 times. It requires the discipline of showing up every single day to do it, even when you don't want to, which is many days. Sometimes it can be like actually physically painful if you're like, trying to get good at a sport and you're having to work out.
I don't know even if this is related or not, but I was having this conversation with somebody the other day. And the thing is, like, for me, if I'm working on a project, I need to be able to sit down and do deep work. So calendar a few hours of time and focus and work on that project. I can't do it in between appointments, 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there.
Right. No,
it's way important. Like, I'm going to take Friday off so that I can work on this. Well, why don't you just do it between appointments? Like, I can't. That's not how this works. This requires deep work. And most agents, they don't time block. They show up, they open up the laptop, and then they're putting out fires in a million different directions.
So is that nature or nurture? Is all of the noise in our industry always trying to convince everybody that everything is so easy? Because, I mean, you look at all the coaches and the podcasts, they only show people that are successful at something, but the why behind that, their personality traits, who they are as an individual.
Right.
That's one of the things that always annoys me is somebody says, everybody likes to hear about the success story. It's like the instant millionaire. It's like, oh, you're worth $1 million. Yeah, but it took me 30 years to figure out how to make $1 million. And so they highlight, so we're always being shown this is a successful person and this is what this successful person did. And then your inclination and what they're kind of insinuating is if you do what they did, you can have the same success that they did. But it's not necessarily, that's not the answer, because they have a different skill set. They have a different level of patience. They have a different level of focus. They process information. And quite frankly, what was their motivation for getting that good at that one thing? What were they running away from, or what were they trying to solve for?
Right.
Right. You have to get something behind you in order to achieve things in front of you. So whatever you're doing, it's what was that Einstein's definition of insanity is continuing to do the same things and expecting different results.
Right.
So it's why do you do that next thing? So for instance, and I don't know, did we ever talk about the competency quadrants, the 4 quadrants of competency? I call it overcoming the learning curve, like really understanding the learning curve.
No, but that sounds like a great podcast.
Okay. Well, let me touch on it real quick and see, because I think we've touched on this. And essentially, psychologically, there is a process to learning new things and overcoming the learning curve. And there's basically 4 quadrants. There's when you first start doing something, you have unconscious incompetence. So like you don't even know that you don't know what the hell you're doing. The second part is you have conscious incompetence. You're like, okay, I recognize that I don't really know what I'm doing right now. So then you have conscious competence, which is like you know that you're doing this, so you're good at it, but you still have to think about it. And then the fourth quadrant, when you overcome the learning curve, is unconscious competence. So that's when it's a habit. You're not thinking about it anymore. So it's unconscious incompetence. You don't know what you don't know. It's conscious incompetence. I know that I don't know. It's conscious competence, which is I know, but I still have to kind of pay attention. And then it's unconscious competence, which is you don't even have to think about it anymore.
Yeah.
It's a habit, move on. And that takes what I've heard is it's just 3 weeks. It takes 3 weeks of doing something until you can achieve some sort of unconscious competence with it. And I've gone through a couple of exercises in the last couple of months that I can say 1,000% that worked for me in this particular case. But some things take a little bit longer to master. But the bottom line is there's no way to avoid that evolution of competency. There's no way to avoid that learning curve of getting to the point where you're doing it. And as we all know, especially salespeople, the hardest part of anything is getting started.
Okay, so let's take this to a conversation we were having just offline, because I think this really powerfully captures. That's really awesome. So this really powerfully captures, I think, why people get sucked into things, right? So you were talking about earlier, the NAR convention happened recently.
Yep.
And you have exhibit halls full of people who are talking to the attendees, and the attendees are walking around unconscious incompetence. They don't know what they don't know. And then they see this tool, and what this tool is promising is, hey, we're going to take you from your unconscious incompetence to your unconscious competence. In other words, we're going to skip all of the middle steps. You just push this button and it's going to be a habit. It's going to happen in the background. You're going to be highly proficient at the push of a button.
And all they are is just rows and rows of people saying, did you know you have this problem? I bet you didn't know you have this problem.
Right.
Well, don't worry, because I've solved it for you. Here's the solution to the problem you didn't know that you have.
Yes.
And you're like, I want that problem. Well, first of all, I didn't know I had that problem, but now that you mention it, I might, and I would like a solution.
Yes.
But
and we don't even think that that's weird, because our whole world is structured like that in our capitalist environment, which is better than our communist environment, where we're starving and our world is structured like that. Dig. But the point is, like, it happens to us all the time. People are always like, you don't know you have this problem, but here's this problem. But don't worry, the instant solution. So,
well, who's ever gotten their flat stack IKEA box back at the house and then said, "Holy how is this ever going to look like it did in the store?" Right? And you're like, okay, they made it dead simple, right? Anybody can put it together. There's clear instructions.
I still
hired somebody to build my bookshelf.
Right. But that's the whole thing. It's like you see the assembled furniture and you say, we have all the instructions, all of the parts. You can put it together yourself. And yes, you're absolutely correct. You can put it together yourself. But what is that going to look like? and you're like, it's that same thing.
The thing with IKEA, though, is that it has the advantage of everyone knows what a bookshelf is. And once you have a bookshelf, like, you can have it in the background operating and it's not a problem. But a CRM isn't the same way. And so that's the problem or
a marketing tool that's going to bring in you a new stream of business that you didn't know you were missing out on.
So going back to the question that we had said, is it a you problem or is it a tool problem? I'm thinking in this competency framework that you just presented, Scott, that maybe one way to answer that question is to look and to say, okay, is this an unconscious incompetence thing? If it is, it's probably not a tool problem. It's probably a you problem. Or maybe you have conscious incompetence, like you're aware there's a problem, but you don't really know, what to do about it to solve it. And that's where tools start becoming interesting. But I mean, I'm
so for instance,
well, let me finish the thought real quick. So what I'm thinking is a good tool is the one where somebody has that conscious incompetence. They've been doing something, and they're looking at the tool and they're like, okay, I think this thing helps clarify. But like the optimal time to take a tool is when you have conscious competence. In other words, you got the discipline, you're working at it, you understand the product, but like you want it to be something that just happens almost in the background, like like a good habit does. And you realize this is manual work. It's never going to just happen in the background because it's manual. Oh, look at this tool. I know exactly where this fits. It's going to make it a habit for me to put it in the background, so I don't have to think about it anymore. now I'm ready to take the tool.
Well, and a great example of this is if you have a CRM that you never built, a different CRM is not ever going to get built either.
Yeah.
Right. So you're like, oh, somebody says, oh, well, this is the easiest CRM ever. Well, it's not. It may have things that are easier, but if you haven't
solve the underlying
problem. It doesn't understand. It doesn't. And when you say the right tool is the one that you use, right? In all cases, because they all do something, and you have to learn that tool. You have to get into it. You have to dig into it, and then after you've mastered that tool, you determine: is this something that I can live with, or is this something that maybe that really wasn't something that I needed to solve for?
Yes.
And so like right now I'm going through this exact experience, but I know that I have a huge learning curve to go through, and it's actually with a CRM. So I'm always trying to minimize my tech stack to the minimal number of technology pieces. I have rules. They have to be able to communicate with each other. There has to be automation. So if something happens in one, it goes to the next step, and it has to happen automatically. It's for me, it's always a process of removing human interaction. So you should be able to do natural steps throughout the process, which triggers automations. Everything talks together. So we've been playing with different automations and text messaging and ringless, voice calls and phone burner type automated things. We've gone through 3 or 4 of those in the last year, right? Mm-hmm. We explored a lot of them. They all kind of were missing pieces. So I know this because we got in and we explored those tools, and we pushed those tools to the limit, and we got to the point where we said, okay, this is good enough. I just wish that it did all these other things. So I found a solution from somebody that I've known for a long time and I really respect, and they know what they're doing. And they created a new CRM tool that for me solves like 3 or 4 problems that I had with the other tools, but it's complex. So,
but you were operating in a phase of conscious competence. You had these other tools going. You knew what you needed.
Right.
You knew what you were doing, but it just wasn't quite streamlined enough. You couldn't get it to habit phase.
Right. I couldn't get it to, I could get it to habit phase, but in that particular case, I ran into limitations of the product.
You couldn't scale it to couldn't scale it to the degree you wanted to then.
Right. Or it didn't fit in, or it required too much manual intervention, or you had to export stuff and then import it into something else. Right. It didn't communicate, whatever, but it absolutely solved a certain amount of problems, but then it stopped. So I've got this new solution now. And yesterday I started looking into it, and I was like, if you want to solve big problems, it takes big commitment to get through that learning curve. And I was looking at it yesterday, and I was like, holy shit, this is gonna suck, right? This is gonna be like boot camp. If I want to get into the Marines, I just got to suck it up. I know that I'm going to want to die every single day for a couple of weeks until I get comfortable. But I've already explored everything that doesn't work. And so my decision was to choose to go back to a conscious incompetence and power through that curve. But because I understand that is the process, and it's become a habit for me over the years of looking at something, first of all, identifying, what am I really trying to solve here? Is it a problem I already had? Or did you just tell me I have this problem and I'm trying to solve a problem I didn't know that I had? Right. So like right now I'm freaking out a little bit because I'm like, this is going to take a lot of brain juice, but I know what it's going to solve for. So the motivation is there. It's not necessarily that I'm trying to avoid the pain. It definitely is a pleasure thing that if I figure this out, or when I figure this out, when I power through this learning curve, and you have to learn all the verbiage and the relationships and how do you get this to do that. And then, but I know that when I power through that, I'm going to be 5 steps above where I was with all of these other tools.
Right.
Yeah. So
going to, I want to try and bring this down to earth a little bit here, because I feel like that's a highly specific example, and it's very useful and clarifying, but I want to try draw some lessons out of it for people to take away. So going back to Ricardo and his situation with the HelloFresh, right? HelloFresh is a great product.
yeah.
But probably it's a great product for the kind of person who was first interested in cooking, right? And so maybe they went and bought flour, and they bought all the little, I mean, anytime you look at a recipe online, like you're having to buy 5 random little things at the grocery store, and they cost $8 to $10 a pop. And then you just have them for one use because you don't know how to like use them.
Because you need a quarter cup.
Right, exactly. Even that, right? Like you might need a teaspoon of it, but you have to buy the $5 bottle, right?
Right.
Vanilla extract or whatever it is. And just pulling that out randomly. I haven't been there before, but anyone who's done cooking, like this is what you do, and it's a process. And then you go from that total unconscious incompetence to, some conscious incompetence. Like you're aware, okay, like I'm trying to better understand how yeast works and how long I have to let dough set, and what the difference is between maybe like a flash grill versus like baking it, and the temperatures and times and all the rest. And then HelloFresh probably comes in. Like it starts making more and more sense when someone's gone through that journey. They have an understanding that, like I enjoy the art of cooking. I enjoy learning about how different flavors can go together. But honestly, if I'm real with myself, for this to be a habit for me to have like home cooked meals every day, I just cannot be going to the grocery store constantly. Like I need a tool that drops the ingredients in. I can do the thing I enjoy doing. I've already got the habit of doing it. I've already gone through the struggle. And now I just need to have something that's like, it's all here and I just can put it together and I can learn that.
HelloFresh is the perfect solution for somebody that cooks every night.
Right.
So they just cook every night, but they're doing it a different way. And so HelloFresh introduces certain streamlined functionality to get from A to B in a shorter and more efficient time frame.
It's perfect.
But it reduces the waste.
It's not a solution for somebody who is restaurant prone.
It's not a solution. Yeah, it's not a solution for somebody that says, "Oh, I would never cook because it's not easy enough."
Right.
Right. And then they come along and they say, "Well, we'll make it easy." And you're like, well, it's not easier than not doing it at all.
Right. And that takes us right into the I mean, this not to dig on Ricardo, because the fact of the matter is we've all been there. And in our marketing, I mean,
1,000%.
this is exactly how we do it. It's like no CRM is easier than not having a CRM. 0% of CRMs are, easier than having no CRM at all.
Yep.
And, you might feel the pain of not having a CRM, but really you can find, like you can sort of mitigate the pain or dull the pain or whatever by doing other little things, whatever those are. So whatever those are.
And this goes back to our episode before of the 4 control framework of the things that you actually have control over. And the single most important reason to have a CRM is to mine the gold mine that is your past client database. Mm-hmm. Right. And your past clients, and we talked about the 80-20 and finding your best clients and really loving on those clients that are going to give you the most repeat and referral business, right, and really diving into that. That's really difficult to do without a CRM, without some way of tracking.
And I mean, I think I talked about this in a past episode too, but we have an agent whose goal is to close 50 transactions this year. He has a database in LionDesk of 3,500, 5,000 contacts just sitting there. We turned on a re-engagement campaign. He got 178 responses in a 48-hour period. And
has he done anything with it?
He has it. Oh, yeah. He has a team. They had 20 conversations with 20 different people, and they're still going through it. But at least 20 different people have indicated, hey, thanks for checking in. Sorry to say, we just sold our place in California. Yeah. And we're happily living in Alaska.
Yeah.
Or, hey, thanks for checking in. Great to hear from you. We just closed escrow on a new home over the summer.
So that is a great example of, well, luckily they had somebody like you that could help kind of walk them through the getting started so that they can see the results. But now I bet you that person is sold that I need to stay in touch with my past clients.
I bet you they're not. I would be interested to come back to that person.
What was interesting is he's not
Because it was done
he's
for him?
not upset.
Yeah.
He's not upset over those 20 conversations that he had where he lost deals. For him, what he's recognizing is, hey, this helps me realize that we thought we were being effective and staying in touch with our database, and we're realizing we're not.
Well, okay. So wait. So I might change my opinion then. So were they doing things to stay in touch with their database, and it was just not going well?
It was just your standard vanilla newsletter.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I mean, that's better. I thought he wasn't doing anything, and then you helped him to get in touch with his database.
So that might be our next episode, which is what I was getting at actually, I just lost it.
Bye, Felicia.
Bye, Felicia.
But I just remembered it.
Yes. Go.
No. All it was is, how do you identify when something doesn't work? So what are your metrics? What are your measurements? So he was sending out a newsletter. He thought that he was mining his past client database, but he wasn't putting himself in that client's shoes. So he was sending them a message through a medium that didn't connect with his past clients. So he knew, he had the thought and the idea, and he was committed to doing something to his past clients. And he didn't decide, oh, marketing to my past clients doesn't work. He decided, or Ricardo probably had unconscious incompetence. And Ricardo came along and said, you know what? I see that you value sending something to your past clients, but it's not effective. This is a better way to communicate with your past clients, and it was significantly more effective. So how do we, without Ricardo, recognize that what we are doing isn't necessarily the wrong thing, but we might be doing it the wrong way?
Yeah, and I kind of wonder if it actually is the case in this guy's case that he had conscious incompetence in the sense that he knew that he was farming his database, but he knew he didn't know how to do it well.
Well, somebody told him one time, you have to send a newsletter to your past clients.
So he was aware of that.
You have to stay top of mind.
And he did it, but he didn't know how to do it well.
He put the absolute minimum effort, and he didn't see the value of a high converting strategy.
And so when I initially said, I don't think it's going to last, I was thinking that he had unconscious incompetence. In other words, he had done nothing.
No.
Right. And that, in my opinion, that's one of the big takeaways for me from this, as I think about our own sales team here at Lighthouse, is if someone presents a solution and it strikes the unconscious incompetence chord, we're probably not ready for that solution. Yeah. We should probably only take on a solution once we've actually done hard work ourselves to get us from the point of unconscious incompetence to the point of conscious incompetence, or even conscious competence. In other words, we're doing something we know we need to do. We're just ignorant on how to do it well, or we're doing something we know how to do it well, but we can't really scale it. We need something that helps us scale it.
Well, and I think that there's an exercise that you can train yourself to do to determine whether or not you're doing everything as effectively and efficiently as you can, and assessing what your strategies and assessing what you're doing. And yeah, so no, that's interesting. So I love where this conversation went. I hope people that are listening can kind of extract, because this is kind of a profound type of a revelation. I mean, it's
right.
Once you see, it's now once your eyes are open and you're like, oh my gosh, I wonder how I'm thinking about my business, and I'm wondering how I'm thinking about solutions to my business.
Yeah, the things I'm spending money on.
Things I'm spending money on, and maybe that is our next episode is the things that you are spending money on. Are you using them the right way? Is it that the tool doesn't work, or is it that you're not thinking of it the right way? And how do you determine that?
Yeah, perfect. Well, this has been the Marketing Trench podcast. Until next time. Yeah.